Scorsese.
Marty.
Dad.
Martin.
Marty.
Mr. Scorsese.
He's my guy.
There's only one Marty Scorsese.
So there is a beautiful documentary on him called Mr. Scorsese. It comes out in 5 episodes and you get to see all the insights in this beautiful mind, what the idea of his filmmaking is, how he approaches a script, how he approaches a scene, everything. I don't just want to talk about that. I want to talk about why I love this man. Okay, and this is not just his movies. Okay, which again, I love his movies as well. But if you love cinema, you have to love Martin Scorsese. And the reason is that the guy won't stop talking about cinema. I mean, if you watch any of his interviews, he loves cinema. And because of him, I think I have fallen in love with films more. And the reason I say this is because, you know, whenever you started to watch international films, you go to Hollywood first, right? And there you might Google and check the IMDb list or Rotten Tomatoes ratings here and there. Alright, but if you really want to watch good cinema, if you want to watch great cinema, my suggestion is that you watch a movie, and if you like it, go to the cast of the movie, watch a couple of sessions, couple of interviews from the directors. This is how I found great films. And the reason I say this is that Martin Scorsese is the guy who introduced me to 3 filmmakers who were truly exceptional. One is Satyajit Ray.
But what was special to me about Ray was that I come from a working class family that was not educated. So there were no books in my house. And I think there was no other way for me to be introduced to Indian culture, the Indian people, aside from watching his films. We saw many films and we had television. And so if it wasn't for seeing Satyajit Ray's films, I don't think I would have had any idea the opening up of such an extraordinary culture and such a great civilization. So the music room for me is my favorite. I'm a great admirer of all his films, but I like Devi, the Oppo trilogy, Distant Thunder, the Chess Players, Charyolata. I may not be pronouncing it properly, excuse me, but the music room for me, I studied over the years. Now, finally, I think 7 years ago, they made a beautiful restoration, and I screened it at least 3 times already in the past 2 years.
There is a couple of his interviews where he just see that one of the first movies he watched was Pattar Panchali. Because of Martin Scorsese, I watched Ray, and my God, Pattar Panchali. For me, I would say this, that Appu trilogy is the greatest trilogy that has ever been made. Not Godfather, not Dark Knight trilogy, not Sunrise trilogy, not the color blue, white and red, not the color trilogy, none. Appu trilogy is the greatest trilogy has ever made in the history of cinema, and that's probably 70-80 years ago.
Satyajit Ray once said of Ritwik Ghatak, for him, Hollywood might not have existed at all, which is a very interesting comment.
The second director I found was Ritwik Ghatak. I think Scorsese was one of the few people who actually works in restoring other cinemas, other films, right? And I think he did a lot of work with Ray's cinemas and Ghatak cinema. Because of him, actually, I started to respect Indian cinema. Because of Scorsese, because he introduced me to both of these giants of Indian cinema, not just Indian cinema, world cinema, because of him. Otherwise, before that, you know what, you come to an age and you're thinking, right, you know, or Hindi mein kya hai, Bollywood mein kuch nahi hai, Indian cinema mein kuch nahi hai, this masala movie they'll make, just dance and flowers, this and that, nothing else they'll make. Then वो शेरना नई आके हो तो हर मंजर अच्छा लगता है, कुछ दिन बाहर घूमे अब घर अच्छा लगता है. Because of Scorsese, I think I found Indian cinema.
For many years, when Westerners thought of Indian cinema, they tended to think of Ray, and then, of course, Bollywood. But over the years, of course, our vision has broadened to include other figures like Ghatak.
And this is true Indian cinema, I would say. And in many ways, I feel like it is quite sad to say this, but I have never heard a lot of people. I mean, I'm sure people have spoken, people have talked about these two, Satyajit Ray and Ritwik Ghatak, but not as much as Scorsese. I haven't seen people talk about these two, or at least have worked to preserve their films as Scorsese does. Guy actually genuinely loves cinema. It just doesn't have to be American cinema or Italian cinema, French cinema. He doesn't care. He loves cinema. He doesn't have a category, right? He loves Hollywood, or he loves Bollywood or Tollywood. He just loves cinema.
None of them were popular successes, and he never found the mass audiences he wanted. Ghatak did, however, inspire an entire generation of independent Indian filmmakers as a teacher and through the example of his work. A River Called Titash, his penultimate film, was made just 3 years before his death. He was just 50 years old.
Now, the other director I want to talk about is Abbas Kiarostami.
But when I think of Abbas's work, it is the cinema which ties us all together. And his cinema, Abbas's, for me, is a form of worship. It's an act of faith. So rest.
Now, Kiarostami is one director. Until about Kiarostami, I thought I have watched fair bit of cinema until I watched The Taste of Cherry. If you want to know what true empathy is, I would just say that watch this movie. I think it is the most heart-wrenching, most thought-provoking movie I have ever watched. And not just this movie. I mean, if you watch
The olive trees, and I see ABC Africa, or Where is the Home of My Friend, or The Wind Will Carry Us, or any of these pictures, the last section of 5, the fifth episode, I think. I found that purity again. I found that I wanted to spend the time with the people in these films. It was like a cleansing to spend time with the spirit of those films, those worlds, the spirit of the artistry which makes me see people in the world in a new, refreshing, and hopeful way.
this guy is so beautiful. I think because of Scorsese I was introduced to Kiarostami, then because of Kiarostami I was introduced to this Iranian, this wave, this huge market of Iranian cinema, right? And Iranian cinema is truly great filmmakers they are. So I love Martin Scorsese. Also, I love just watching him talk about cinema, if not more.
What are the essentials to you? What makes
I think
cinema?
what makes cinema to me, I think ultimately it's something that for some reason stays with you, so that a few years later you could watch it again, or 10 years later you watch it again and it's different. In other words, there's more to learn about yourself or about life. That's interesting. At first, you may find that I'm affected by this film. The camera work is amazing. The actors are terrific. Great editing and that sort of thing. But after a certain amount of time, after you get enough of that, like for example,